chemical weapons specialist. He joins us now from Ottawa. Jean-Francois, thanks for joining us. Let me ask you about how authorities go about confirming what kind of chemical was used in an assault like that one.
Okay. Well, the first thing I just want to restate that I feel completely, disgusted by the use of chemical weapons nowadays. I think it's really unacceptable. But to your question is, what the first thing that we would see is the symptoms on the victims. So in this particular case, it was observed there were runny noses, tightness of the chest, convulsions, respiratory distress. So all leads to the use of nerve agents. But I think subsequent analysis of whatever sample was left would confirm the use of sarin.
So are we talking about blood samples, hair samples, clothing samples? Would those still have sarin on them, and could that be determined? Yes.
So anything that would have been exposed to the agent would lead to analysis or confirmation of the agent. Now, what we have to keep in mind is the agent has a certain volatility, which means depending on the temperature, it would evaporate more or less fast. So I think what is key is to act fast following a chemical agent to get the samples on whether it's clothing, tissues, and then proceed with the analysis.
What about color? What about smell?
Sarin is a colorless and liquid, and it doesn't have any odor, so that's what makes it a bit difficult to be able to detect, actually when there's an exposure.
We see in some of the video coming back from Syria that the emergency responders are hosing down the victims, trying to get the nerve agent off them. Would that work?
Yes, I mean, the first thing is to get rid of the agent as much as possible. So getting rid of all the contaminated clothing would be the first thing to do. Now, keeping in mind, first responders also have to protect themselves. But I think in a case like this, prompt action is required. And just using plain water would get rid of most of the agents.
If you have been dosed with this, got into your skin, got onto your clothing, what would the long-term effects be if you survived the dosing?
Okay. Long-term, I think effects would be more from a central nervous system because nerve agents interact with the system itself. So it's hard to say exactly what we do, but I think there could be some memory losses or anything to do with the way the body functions from a nervous system.
Compared, Jean-Francois, to other chemical weapons that we know are still in the world and occasionally used, where does sarin fall in as far as being deadly and being horrific?
I think I would compare it to chlorine because there's been recent uses of chlorine, unfortunately. Sarin has a toxicity of about 500 times more, if you want, more toxic than chlorine. So from a scale, the use of sarin is a lot more, unfortunately toxic than other ones. It's similar toxicity more or less with other chemical agents like VX. But I think from using chlorine as an example, sarin is definitely more toxic and more potent.
Chemical weapons specialist Jean-Francois Legault is joining us today from Ottawa. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.